did your role in The Sopranos come about?
It's a crazy Hollywood type story. I wouldn't believe if it didn't happen to me. I was inducting the Rascals into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It was the first time that the Hall of Fame had ever been broadcast. It was always a private ceremony. David Chase is clicking around. David Chase, the creator of Sopranos, stops on that channel and catches my 3-4 minute speech and says, let's get him on the TV show, you know.
People talk about the white soul singers, you know, and there's a lot of names that come up. But Eddie and Felix, I'm telling you right now, they're the best. I mean, you know, with all due respect.
And so he had been a fan. I mean, he had Bruce's records, and he even had some of my solo records.
Right.
So he calls and says, "Do you want to, you know, be in my new TV show?" I said, "Thank you, but not really. No, you know, I'm not an actor."
Yeah.
And he said, "Yes, you are an actor. You just don't know it yet." So at that point, this is, you know, 95, 96 or so. You know, I was just kind of walking my dog, you know. I mean, I was literally not doing anything. Out of work, I lost my record deal, and I just was looking for something to do. So, okay, let's try this acting thing, you know. I don't know.
So you tried it?
I tried it and went to the greatest acting school anyone will ever go to, which is called The Sopranos.
You know, you're getting to be a very strange man in your old age, you know that?
What? I'm just asking. Is it a hanging offense or not?
How did you prepare for the role, or did you?
Oh yeah. I didn't know. You know, my wife is a real actor. Like, she went to school, and so we'd always discuss things when Maureen came back from her classes about, you know, the stuff she'd learned that day in school, and you know, it was a lot of theories and interesting things. I didn't really understand them very well, really. So when I got this possibility of this gig, I just said, well, I got to figure this guy out from the outside in, you know? If I can look in the mirror and see somebody else, then I can be them. So that's what I did. I wrote a whole biography about him, and he was a bit of a throwback, you know? He was kind of romanticized the good old days of the mob as being people with more respect. They weren't ratting each other out every 5 minutes and all that modern day mobsters do. You know, it was a time of integrity, and you know, which was, you know, completely romanticized, actually.
It's fair to say you got him. You understood him. I
wanted to understand him. I mean, in his relationship with Tony Soprano and the whole thing. You know, they grew up together. He was his best friend. And, you know, he was going to end up his consigliere and his advisor and best friend. And Silvio would be the only guy on the show that did not want to be the boss. You know, he was very happy in that role behind the scenes. I basically took my relationship with Bruce Springsteen pretty much and, you know, projected it to Sopranos. And David Chase, you know, went along with the idea, you know.
Question. Do you think you could have played this role or played it anywhere near as well as you did if you had not been of Italian heritage, had your Italian mother?
I don't know. Maybe growing up in the same environment, you know, because you'd always run into these guys. Now, were they the real thing, or were they wannabe wise guys? Well, it didn't really matter much, okay? They were equally scary, and, you know, so you'd see them around, you know, in the clubs, you know. So maybe it might have been, you know, I think the Italian family helped. You know, just being familiar with the food and the customs and the basic dialogue that happens in Italian families, right, which we used a lot of in the show. I mean, that was the whole concept, was to basically show the tension, you know, between the guys' two families, you know.
Which you did brilliantly.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to ask you something, and I've been thinking through the whole interview how to ask this in the right way. That there's a story behind you wearing the headgear that you almost always wear.
Yeah, bandana, yeah.
In some ways, it's a great story. Do you mind talking about that and telling people why you wear this and how it happened that you practically have to wear it?
Yeah, it was just somewhere in the mid-'70s now. Car crossed the line and late at night, and I went through the windshield of the car, and the hair just didn't grow in right. You know, this was kind of, I don't know if it was scar tissue or what. So.
Well,
So-
I get the picture. You had a very serious automobile accident. You go through the windshield, which can do strange things to the top of your head.
Yeah, and probably inside too, which, you know, a good excuse for me, isn't it? Anyway, you know, so it was like, well, what am I going to do? You know, start wearing wigs then, you know, or this bandana thing. And, you know, figured what the hell. It turned out to be a great thing for the acting side of things, because, you know, once you do put on any kind of different hair you put on, you really do become somebody else quite easily.
I can see. And so when you put on the wig for your role in The Sopranos, no problem. This is not
Exactly.
a problem for me.
Exactly.
I've been covering my head for years.
Yeah, that, but you're also looking in the mirror, seeing a whole different guy.
Yeah.
You know, so I can be that guy. To this day, I don't know how actors can act so well, looking exactly like they look. You know what I mean, in real life. You know what I mean? Like, because, you know, by the time I got into acting, I had been an autobiographical songwriter. You know, I had been really exploring who I was and learning about who I. So I really very secure in who I was. I know myself quite well. You know, to then act a role to be someone else, more or less, I had to come up with my own theory. First of all, I came up with a theory that we are all, every possible character in the world exists in all of us. I just made this up, okay? Okay, so from Gandhi to Hitler, you know, exists in all of us, right? So acting is finding the appropriate character for that role that's written, and then bringing it to life, you know, inhabiting that particular character and bringing it to life, and then inhabiting that for as long as that role takes place, and then, you know, then you put it back, you know. So in this case, I had a little help because I had been a fan of the genre. I'd seen every movie going back to Cagney and earlier, and every book, I read every book, and I'd seen them around, you know. I kind of like felt I could do this, you know. And then when I found out where John Gotti had his clothes made. I had his suits made for me, and you know, and I designed the hair to be a bit of a 50s because again, he was a little bit nostalgic, so
Yeah.
he looked like a 50s type of guy. And then I looked in the mirror and I said, you know, and part of my biography was that he was completely fearless.
Yeah.
So when I walked out of that trailer onto that set, I was that guy. I was fearless. I wasn't afraid to act. I wasn't afraid to be with other famous actors. I wasn't afraid to act for the first time in my life because I was that guy. You know what I mean? And he doesn't have any fear.
What a
I
wonderful
couldn't have
thing,
done
though.
it, but he could. You know.
But you had no fear. See, I would have thought you'd been so nervous your knees are knocking, even though you've been on stage a lot before.
Well, you see, that's what I mean. If I had gone looking like myself, then I would have been very nervous. Yeah.